Hello, everybody. We have an interesting situation today. Michael Huber, also known on this show as Hogger, is out sick today, and it's really hard for us to do Tabletop Adventures without everybody here. I don't like doing it that way. I'm against it, and I know that kind of bums you guys out. But I've had an idea for a video that I've been kicking around for a while. We're pretty deep into the story of these characters, and I've wanted to do a recap. Where we kind of, in very broad strokes, because a lot has happened, we kind of talk about what everybody's been through and where they are now. So that way you can kind of watch the latest episode and have some semblance of an idea of what's going on. The original idea for this video was I was going to write it all down and narrate it. And as I was kind of going through that process, I found out that I didn't really like it. I think the whole appeal of this show is us interacting with each other. And so this is going to take a totally different vibe than I originally envisioned. And it's going to be us just kind of remembering our ways through it. Like imagine, friends you haven't seen in a long time. You're thinking about the days of yore. And you're just kind of kicking back and relaxing. And so I thought the best way to start this off is, you all play very specific characters. Can you tell us about your characters? And Kyle Bossman, we'll start with you at the end of the couch.
Whoa. I play Andrie Highhill. A slightly ironic name because she's a halfling. A Lightfoot halfling who is a rogue. She's... a miscreant. She's a no good. She's a thief. She has a real attitude. Doesn't put up with it too much.
She's very stealthy.
And very stealthy. If we're talking like her game dynamics, she's got a great stealth. She's got great dex.
You also, Andrie has a kind of tumultuous relationship with Hogger. Like there have been some fights that have kind of broken out.
It's come to blows.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you've almost killed each other. Well, Hogger's almost killed you. Several times.
Yeah. I see. So, what's really funny is at one point, maybe we'll get through it during our narration, but there was a point at which I realized everyone is way cooler than Andrie. And so then I started envisioning Andrie as like a side character in an anime, where episodes will go by where that character doesn't do anything, and then just on one episode, that character comes in and does something very cool.
When is that going to happen?
It happens all the time.
I got you, Bird Bossy.
Bird. And so that is what Andrie is.
So that's why you just sit out in the rain half the time.
Yeah.
I also have to say, not talking about Andrie, talking about Kyle Bossman specifically, I feel like when anything bad happens to Hogger, like I look over at you as it's happening, you got a smirk on your face.
Yeah, I enjoy, if we're talking about like what Dungeons and Dragons is about, I enjoy that kind of carnage that is created when this character, when Huber is just doing anything he wants and has to deal with the consequences of that. It's like, imagine if somebody's in GTA and just like, hey, I want to just go in there and I want to do anything I want. It's like, okay, but then that has consequences and you have to deal with that now. It's like, oh, that is what happens to Hogger, and that's what I enjoy so much.
Right, and even in like comparison to something like Grand Theft Auto, in Grand Theft Auto you can hit somebody, you can shoot somebody, or you can run over. Like what you can do in D&D is practically anything. I mean, last episode, Elise's character Pervent prevented Hogger from being killed by a goddess by taking off all of his clothes
As an offering. Which Pervent isn't the most brave of characters. So for him to go out of his shell like that, literally the shell of his clothing, was a big feat for him.
What kind of character is Pervent?
Pervent's Toscobble is a Lightfoot halfling bard. He is notoriously cowardly. So he actually was banished from his home by his father, who told him to go seek adventure and come back and carry on in the tradition of the family of bards that he belongs to, because he's also a really bad bard. He's a classic underdog and really has not much going for him. He admires heroes and adventurers so much, and he so wants to be one. Hogger specifically, who is this like brute and just violent warrior who does terrible things, but for some inexplicable reason, Pervent looks up to him like he's a god and considers him his best friend. He's never had much luck with the ladies, kind of being the character that he is. So any affection or attention he gets.
I seem to recall him receiving panties as a gift.
He got the panties, not necessarily given to him though. That was a little fuzzy.
He stole those panties.
He stole those
panties.
panties as a trophy.
But the character defends them as a gift constantly.
Definitely.
Well, now they're wrapped on Hogger's arm.
No,
they're
actually
gone.
now. Yeah.
They're
gone.
ripped. They're ripped and disbanded.
But yeah, any female attention he gets, he just takes as, oh my gosh, this woman loves me. But that's 99.9% of the time not the case.
And Purvance has definitely had a lot of growth on the show. Maybe the most growth out of anybody, I would say, because I remember kind of in the first dungeon you guys were in, there would be turns during combat where you would say to me, like, yeah, Purvance just like cowers in a corner.
Pees himself.
Yeah.
He peed himself, ran away, and cowered in the corner.
Yeah.
And slowly over time, like as he got a little bit more success and the more things he saw, he's changed. He's willing to do things for other people.
He's chaotic good. He wants to do good, but sometimes his cowardice prevents him from doing so. But any slight glimmer of like support he can get from one of his friends just like boosts his courage so much. He's beautiful.
Even if they're just
He's a
mirror
wonderful
images
person.
and not actually his friends.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
to him they're his friends.
Right, exactly. Ian Hink plays the absolutely gorgeous and sometimes ridiculously overpowered druid, Lilia. You want to talk a little bit about Lilia?
I am Lilia Meliamne, 326, I think, year old, 24 maybe, year old wood elf, druid, female. My village was burned down by strange arcane fire a while ago, so I set out on an adventure to try to find out who did it. I'm lawful neutral. Generally the only one that thinks things through.
Yeah.
Andrew does too, a little.
That was kind of the point that I wanted to bring up, is I feel like a lot of the times when there have been a lot of times where I feel like the group, had they followed the path they originally were going on, they would have certainly died, and you kind of try to be the reasonable one of the group. You try to hold things together.
The boring one.
Ruin the fun.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I don't think you can be the boring one when you have panther parties. I don't
Yeah, I
think
throw
that's
some panther parties. I summoned 8
Bear
panthers.
Brigade.
Four
Brigade.
4 bears that were very good at geometry. Yeah. All these non sequiturs to someone who doesn't know the story.
we'll get there. We'll
thinks
get
we're
there.
insane.
We're giving it, we call this teasers.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I
Hogger.
Hogger.
yeah, I feel bad talking about Hogger, but this is the recap episode. We have to do it, even though he's not here. Hogger is a half-orc. He doesn't have a last name.
Hogger.
He really doesn't. You look at his character sheet; it just says Hogger. He is a half-orc fighter, or no, he's a full-orc fighter. Excuse me. And
I thought it was a half orc.
He's half human.
Yeah.
no,
He's half.
But he's
He-
half orc, half human.
I thought his mom was.
So there was a lot of confusion in the beginning.
Uh-oh.
He really wanted to be an orc, and I was like, with the rules that because this was before I had the player's handbook, and I just had the starter edition rules. I'm like, there's not any full orc in here. I feel a little bit uncomfortable with it. And he's like, fine, I'll be a half orc. And then I was like, actually, no, be what you want to be. He might call himself a half orc now, but I can swear to God, I remember us saying he was an orc.
He's some kind
some
of
point.
orc.
He's
Does
some
he
kind
still
of
have a
orc.
beautiful head of hair?
I don't think he.
Every drawing I've ever seen
Yeah.
of Hogger, he's got some
Great
I think
nice
they
hair.
just put Huber's hair.
Yeah, they
on
do.
the
A lot of the
character.
fan art just puts our hair.
Yeah. Orc or half orc, Hogger had a very traumatic past. Some things happened to his family and his village. It was attacked, and they were brutally killed. His mother was assaulted in some pretty unspeakable ways, and he has spent the rest of his life kind of looking for the people who did that. He's been seeking vengeance, and that's sort of the thing that drives him. And he is a character that, I mean, if you were to sum up Hogger in one word, it would be impulsive. You know, he gets something in his mind, and you're not going to convince him otherwise. You know, if a god, and he's all about honor as well. You know, honor and action are kind of the two modus operandi for Hogger. He just kind of.
He has his own weird personal code of honor.
Yeah,
I
he
think,
does.
though.
Which
It
seems to
does.
change.
It's very
from-
flexible.
from day to day.
It
Yes.
does. You know, he's figuring things out, I think.
Sure.
Still.
Yeah.
You know, because before he met you guys, he was kind of on his own as a warrior, fighting and learning and training. And I think you guys have kind of.
He's learning to
Yeah,
not be a total
he has
crazy
felt
person.
things for Purwitz I don't know he's ever felt before. But more than anybody else, the root of all of our trouble, Hogger gets you guys into things that I think you often aren't going to get out of.
It's Hogger's story.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. And yeah.
I'm amazed he's not dead.
Basically, I say, you encounter something, and he says, I attack it. That's usually how it goes.
And then we go, oh, God.
But thank you all so much for the character introductions. Now we're going to talk about the story. And, we're limited on time a little bit, so we won't have every detail. And I apologize if we gloss over anything
Broad
that was
strokes.
very important to you guys. But this is just sort of a short summary. And it all starts out kind of, your motivation for getting together is there was this dwarf named Gundren Rockseeker. And what he said is he seemed like a well-connected guy, a well-connected dwarf. You didn't really understand his motivations, but he seemed like somebody that could tell you what you wanted to know. You all had personal things that you were seeking, and it seemed like maybe he was somebody that could lead you to the next step. Turns out he hired all of you to take this cart of goods to the town of Phandalin. And you don't know why, he hired such skilled adventurers for such a simple task, but he said, hey, I'll meet you in Phandalin, I'll tell you what you want to know, and you guys decided to do it. And this is really where episode 1, things kick off for our group, is they are together, they're on their way to this town, they're on the road. And the first thing that happens is you guys see two horses that are dead on the ground.
By arrow.
They're filled with arrows. And you guys go and you investigate the dead horses, and you are ambushed by goblins. And this is your very, very, very first encounter, very classic D&D style, running into some goblins.
I have no memory of this whatsoever.
Yeah,
Really?
this was a long time ago.
I remember
memory.
Andrew sat with the cart outside the cave.
Yeah.
We're not even
I
running
remember
to
that.
the cave yet.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so you guys get ambushed, and you actually, this is the only time that you've done this in like the history of the show, I think, where you actually, I think you were attacked by 2 or 3 goblins, and you leave one of them alive. And yeah. Like the way that I set up, I just want to like a little behind the scenes stuff. A lot of times the way that I set up encounters is it's like, okay, if they leave this guy alive and they talk to him, they'll get this information.
Yeah.
Never happens. Never happens.
Never know, though.
Yes, I do. You guys get ambushed. You leave one of them alive, and he tells you that they took a dwarf into this cave. And you guys think it's Gundren. So you go to the cave.
Although I think, addendum,
Yeah, go please.
we left him alive to get the information, and then I used Entangle and tangled him to the ground, and then Hogger cut him in half.
Yes.
We never leave anyone alive.
I do remember you killing him. I did skip over that part,
Yeah.
but yes, you did kill him. Absolutely.
I just don't want to think anybody think we've gone soft.
Well, you've certainly gotten harder as things are going on, as we'll see. And so you go to the cave, and you guys, there are actually some goblins. There are bushes kind of to the right of the cave. And you guys find them, and you kill them, and you rest. And then you go into the cave, and this is where things start to get a little crazy. You guys remember this first cave with the wolves and the water?
A hill of rocks that Andrew tried to climb and then slipped over and fell, and then guarded the horse.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And I refused to kill the wolves until they attacked us.
Yeah, because Lilia cares about nature above all else,
yeah.
and doesn't like hurting innocent creatures that are clearly being mistreated. But you guys kind of go through this cave, and things happened. Andrew, were you with the group initially, and you split off?
Oh, this whole thing sucked because that happened, and then eventually like water started flushing down the cave, and then Andrea got like hit by rocks and like died because of that.
Right. So what ended up happening is there was this waterfall, and it was kind of feeding into this dam, and sort of like the goblins' contingency plan was if we ever get invaded,
knock the wall.
Right. They sort of had 2 separate dams, and so they could release one to just like try to flush out the invaders, and if that didn't work, they had another one that they could do, and and try it again.
Except I think Hogger was cool and like clung on to something. And it
Yeah,
didn't
he
flush
did.
in.
He did.
Buried his axe in the or his hands or something in the rock. His bare hands.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. But Andrew, you weren't so lucky. You got
Yeah.
blasted by the rushing water all the way outside the cave, and you were very upset by that.
Yeah.
And you went back in, and you went another way that the group hadn't gone. I think they killed the wolves in there, but you went farther.
Yeah.
And there was this steep incline of rock that I think you tried it 2 or 3 times, and you failed.
Ended up taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, you ended up falling all the way down and hitting your head and taking a lot of damage. You guys were actually in. So when I initially did the session, I thought you guys were only going to be in the cave for 1 episode, maybe 2 episodes. As it turns out, with this show, I think you guys were in there for like 4 or 5 episodes. Just this one.
Every
cave.
time you think something will be
it
short,
wasn't even that big of a
we
cave.
like chase a bird for an entire episode and then
Right. Yeah, that happened.
Space birds.
So
This broad strokes recap is pretty fine strokes.
sorry, we'll
We're
make it
gonna
a
be
little
in here
bit
for
broader.
4 hours.
Eventually, the way that it wraps up is you guys. There's a bugbear leader. You guys kill him. It turns out the dwarf that was in there wasn't Gundren. It was his friend Sildar.
Who we let die.
Who you let die. He was like the bugbear like had him at knife point, and
And I believe we said we don't care.
Yeah,
Slit his throat.
yeah. Sildar could have given you a lot of great information, but you know that's the way it goes in D&D. That's the beauty of it.
Cookie crumbles.
So that happens. You kill the bugbear, and then you're like, well, what do we do now? And you decide to go to the town.
Oh, but Purvince made the bugbear laugh. I think,
That's
which
right.
is worth noting.
Right. What did you say? I don't remember.
I think
It wasn't. It's a joke.
it wasn't a joke. It was like he stood up to the bugbear, I think.
And
Yeah.
the bugbear
Yeah.
laughed,
Bugbear
and
laughed.
then Pervin started nervously laughing also.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
So,
there was
like,
a really
fit in.
great.
That really kind of weakened the bugbear, made him susceptible
Yeah.
to harm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. There are a lot of times when Pervins will say, "This happened," and I sometimes have to say no. But yeah, so that was a good interjection. There was actually awesome fan art that came out of that. But afterwards, you guys go to the town, and the first thing that happens in town is you see a young woman, and Hogger gets off the cart,
Oh, God.
and he punches her in the face, basically.
Yeah.
Turns
No
out
real reason.
it was the innkeeper's daughter, and these
Pissed him
people.
right off.
This was a small mining town.
Small
You know,
town.
they had never seen an orc before, so they all hate you instantly because they're like, well, these jerks are just going to come in and punch our women, and so they all like kind of board up their houses.
I think
And
it was a shove, by the way.
Yeah, it was a shove.
It was a shove because you made him roll to see how strong the shove was.
Yeah,
and then
it was a
turned out-
shove that
yeah.
felt like a punch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
because it was from
Because she
Hogger.
was like, she ran up and was like, "You gotta help me."
And honestly, it was because she was just between Hogger and the bar.
yeah,
Right,
Hogger
yeah.
wanted to go to the bar.
That was
Yeah.
his justification.
and so
And
he
actually,
pushed her out of the way.
Hogger's need to drink ended up fueling a lot of the actions that followed because Hogger really wanted to drink, but it turns out all of the ale was being hoarded by this band of thieves. And
The red band?
yeah,
Something, was
the
it?
red something. I don't remember the name. I should have written all
Was
this
it Red
down.
Bandits
Shield?
or red?
No, because the shield is the
Whatever, they were bandits.
grocery
Yeah.
company.
They were bandits.
Yeah.
And Hogger was having none of this, so you guys decide to actually infiltrate their hideout. And
Yeah.
this was like some of the most thought you've ever put into a plan.
It was fantastic.
Pervins, you dressed up as an ale delivery man.
With a mustache.
Yep, with a
Yeah.
mustache.
To entice them with the alcohol.
Yes. And Andrew, you were in an ale barrel.
Yep.
And then Hogger and Lilia, you were kind of outside of where these guys were hiding out.
They were my
Waiting.
beer maids, weren't they?
I was.
You were the
I
beer
was.
maid?
I was.
I don't remember
I
any
was
beer
his
maids.
beer
'Cause
maid.
someone had
Yeah.
to carry the ale.
Yeah,
Purvince
because
wouldn't have
he
been
couldn't
able to carry
carry
that.
it, so I was carrying the cask.
But
Hogger was in a building down the street waiting for the code word murder.
right, that's correct. The code word murder, and that comes in very shortly. So you guys go in there, and the bandits are doing some not very nice things with this helpless woman.
It was pretty graphic.
They seem like pretty awful people. And Pervins is, trying to get in there, trying to keep things cool. And kind of once things reach their breaking point, Andrew pops out of the barrel and screams, "Murder!"
Yeah.
In kind of one of his most iconic moments, I would say. And that ended up being a really fun fight because Perfect. I think that is where you got your first kill.
Yeah.
Actually, was that fight, and Lilia shot her bow so well that
that it became a
that we made up some stuff,
After-
and the bow became like a panther.
That was after I
With the
used
arrow.
Wild Shape for the first time, I
Yep.
think, and turned into a panther and fought a bunch of the guys on the porch. But Hogger didn't know I could do that, so he thought I was an enemy and tried to attack me. And then I turned back into myself, and he was mad at me for using magic.
True to your roguish ways, Andrew, you actually picked up a scroll off one of I think the bandit leader.
Yeah.
And that actually comes into play later.
It's Andrew's first sneak attack as well.
Did you sneak attack during that?
Murder counted as a sneak attack.
Oh, right, because you caught him off guard. Yep.
Yep.
Yep, you had advantage on that. Yep. And so, after you kind of save the town from all these bandits, turns out people like you quite a bit more. The innkeeper's very happy with you. He puts you up in the inn for the night.
There's the sexist blacksmith that I threatened into upgrading my saber.
Yeah, that blacksmith was a real jerk. And kind of right after the whole thing happened, you guys meet another character who is no longer with us, sadly, Taylor Day Swift. Played by the Max Song, the Max Song, and he was an alchemist who, kind of like you guys, was searching for something. He was searching for something called the Philosopher's Stone.
From Harry Potter.
From Harry Potter. The British Harry Potter.
And
He said, I'm here for the Harry Potter stone. And we said, come on.
thought he might be a little bit more successful if he had some adventurers kind of watching his back. So he
Boy,
decided
was he wrong.
to join.
Oh man, you're right. What
Yeah.
a sad story.
Yeah, it is a sad story. But as you guys are resting, Hogger kind of drinks himself into a stupor, and Kyle, you end up popping open the scroll and reading it.
Yeah.
And it tells you, was kind of our first lore dump, but it tells you about Sylvia, the spider goddess. And Sylvia's whole thing is that she serves beings that are even more powerful than she is, and these beings think that like anything that is populating any of the planets is not worth it. Like they're undeserving of their freedom, basically. They should be nothing but mindless servants. And so she's creating an army to kind of travel the cosmos and enslave everyone. And if they're not easy to enslave, they just mass genocide wipes them all out. And so you guys see all of this, and you learn that sort of the last place Gundren was seen was in a mine, the mine of Fandelver, and it's east from the town. And so when you guys wake up in the morning, you decide to head east, and you go through a very thick forest. And as you're going through this forest, it's the middle of the night, you black out. And interestingly, this is a character that we haven't really seen since this happened. A woman dressed in white said, I want you to be my champions. I want you to help me. I want to fight Sylvia. And so she gives you a challenge. You guys, I'm very fond of challenges, I guess. They tend to appear a lot on the show. And you guys do a challenge. You remember what the challenge is with the shadow demon and the riddle?
Oh yeah, we had to light the 4 torches or whatever. That part.
You had to extinguish the 4 churches
yeah.
simultaneously. So there was
Which
a
I
riddle.
did.
And that was the blood
With-
sacrifice too? That's where
Was
No,
that
that's coming
later?
up.
Oh, it's
That's
coming
coming
up.
up very shortly.
I extinguished the torches using my druid craft, where I could just turn
Yep.
them all off.
More overpowered druid stuff.
I can't help it. I'm awesome. I'm
But
300 years old.
You guys successfully solved the riddle. The demon, as you were solving it, every time you would kill him, he would come back to life. That was kind of the thing. And as you extinguished each torch, he would get stronger and stronger. So that was incentive for you guys to extinguish all 4 of the torches that were there at once. But once that's done, you guys wake up right in front of the mine, and you go in the mine. You actually end up going down this really, really, really long ladder. And this is where things kind of get weird, because you're in a dungeon, and it's all messed up. It's the corridors are these branches, and the branches actually squirt out acid that will degrade your equipment
and burn the boobs off of your armor.
Yeah, so you've kind of been in this state ever since.
Never fixed it. I think my breasts are exposed.
Yeah.
I think it's 1.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think later something happened where the other one was exposed. And
Everyone
I have
in the
that
group
new,
has seen your boobs, though.
I have that. Well, I don't really care, but I have that new armor, but I don't trust it, so I don't wear it.
You're skipping ahead.
Yeah.
Right, skipping ahead. Anyway, this is actually where we have one of the classic moments of Tabletop Adventures. You guys run into what you guys called the Biger. It was this stone wall, and there was a face that looked like it was between like a bear and a tiger, and you guys called it the Biger. And you figured out that the only way to get through is if you gave up
A piece of you.
a piece of yourself.
Yeah. Which at first we thought was like blood, so we were bleeding into it.
Yeah, you
Because
guys
it
kept
would
cutting
glow. It would
yourself.
faintly
Yeah.
glow if you
Glow.
get a little bit of blood.
Yep, that's correct. The way that I thought you guys would solve this is if you had just gone a different way. There were actually a bunch of corpses, and you could have hacked off like an arm of a corpse or something and put it in there.
No.
It saved yourself a lot of hassle. But Hogger, being the character that he is, chopped off his arm,
Hand.
fed up with the riddles and the magic.
This is post the fight with Andri as well.
Yes.
He was getting a little frustrated, I think.
Fill us in. What exactly happened there?
Andri used 2 words you should never tell Hogger. Shove off.
Was this? Oh, this was about the dead dwarf.
Oh, you're right.
And
Andri
he-
stole some boots off his...
Hogger decided out of nowhere
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
respected dwarves.
Yeah,
and
because he had
wouldn't
one
let
dwarf friend
Wouldn't
once.
let you steal the boots of swiftness off this
Beat
dead
the shit
dwarf.
out of that woman in the village.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
don't take the boots off a dead
take
dwarf.
the boots off a dead dwarf.
that he's never met before.
And so
yeah.
Hogger buried the dwarf with his bare hands, and then Andri dug it
up
up
the
and took the boots
But then Hogger cut off his hand, and that's
Yeah.
like
and broke
one of the
Andri's
things
bow
that
in
has
half.
made
Yeah.
this series what it is.
Yeah, and additionally, Pervance, you... Hogger, obviously cutting off his hand, was bleeding a lot, and it turns out you had stolen some panties not that
They were
long
a
before
gift.
that event. Yeah, that he claims was a gift, and Hogger used those panties kind of as a tourniquet for his sliced off arm.
Yeah, well, Hogger begrudgingly used them. Pervance kind of convinced him, I think.
Yeah.
And then Pervance tended to the wound and
Yeah.
fashioned the
He
tourniquet.
didn't have a lot of other options.
And an
No.
amazing stroke of Pervance-like luck
Yeah.
fixed the wound using soiled, stolen panties.
Meanwhile, Taylor DeSwift is investigating a lot of things.
Investigating a lot of things. We gave him, I particularly gave him a lot of hard time because he said he would want to investigate things. I was trying to encourage him, say, like, how do you investigate things? And that actually kind of ends up being his downfall.
Yes.
Because once you guys get through the Biger, eventually you get into this room, and there are a bunch of blue mushrooms. And you guys kind of encourage Taylor to just like go in and investigate. Just go for it. You know, he's the alchemist. Maybe he knows what these mushrooms are. Turns out the mushrooms were poisonous.
And for the record, he didn't want to do it.
No.
We definitely coaxed him into doing it.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Strongly encouraged.
His entire life, he's been so cautious about everything, and this one time, he's like, "Fine,
He
I'll
met
go."
us.
Yeah. And so he picks up the mushrooms, I believe, and
We got
they,
real close anyway.
they emitted a gas, and
Yeah.
that gas actually ended up killing him.
Dead.
Dead,
Forever.
like dead, not coming back anymore. Dead, unfortunately.
the really real world.
And that was it. And thankfully, due to Taylor's sacrifice, you guys knew to kind of avoid the mushrooms, and you guys kind of walked around the perimeter of the room and continued forward. And then we go in to kind of, once we get past this, we get into the sort of the heart of the dungeon. And you guys start to kind of get into the main storyline because you start fighting Driders.
Which are like these half human, half spider creatures.
Yep.
A centaur, but
Centaur.
no horse
That's
part.
spider
It's all
bottom.
Spytor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spytars.
And
Driders.
these
Driders.
Driders were definitely like the most difficult thing that you'd fought up to that point. I think you definitely had a hard time with them. But we ended up we ended up doing a joke. That's the only way to describe it. Do you remember the 3 blind mice?
Oh.
Bucky, Ducky, and Lucky.
Oh yeah, Pervance had a special power that week that he could unleash these 3 blind mice that would terrorize his opponents and then explode.
But not before singing a song.
Right.
Don't remember the song.
The reason this came about
Oh.
is we had, which we don't really employ anymore, we had the Pervance rule. Because you were an underdog Pervance,
Yeah.
anytime you would cast a spell, I thought it would be cool and play into your character if, you know, you would roll a dice, and if it was above 10, you would be doubly successful. Like that was kind of just your luck. Like when things work, they really, really work. But if you rolled below its end, the spell wouldn't work at all and it would just completely fizzle out. And people kept asking me about the Pervance rule and like, oh, I forgot it here, or what does it really entail? And so we thought it would just be funny to kind of play a mind game on you guys. And we said that the Pervance rule was,
As we all know.
yeah, as we all know, you summoned 3 blind mice that sang a song that you sang.
It was like, we're Bucky, Ducky, and Lucky. We love you and we hope it shows. We're Bucky, Ducky, and Lucky, and we're about to explode. It was something like that. I don't remember what it was.
And so this joke actually ended up being like kind of horrifying.
It saved us.
You
It
picked
did save us.
You picked at random a spell.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
Fire
Fireball.
blast
Yeah,
or
and it
whatever.
And then looking it up.
blew
And then
everything
you look it up
out.
and it was like an extraordinarily powerful spell,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
destroyed like 2
So
drivers.
you guys ended up blowing up the spiders. What was also there was one of Sylvia's generals. It was that sort of robot guy with the staff that could turn invisible. You remember him?
Yeah.
What was also there is Gundren was there. Gundren was knocked unconscious actually, and
Vaporized.
yeah, the joke,
By the
the fireball
mice.
joke, ended up completely vaporizing him into nothingness.
Our one lead.
Yeah.
The one goal we
The
had
one
was
lead.
to find Gundren, and we smoked him.
A
Vaporized.
couple of little things that also happened is you guys encountered a green flame, and you actually kind of bathed your weapons in the green flame, and it all gave you a +1, which you're still receiving the benefits of today. Another thing is you found a white crystal, and this white crystal ends up being useful a lot over the course of the adventure. But to kind of speed things up, you guys, I don't remember who it was, so please remind me. You see a stone that kind of shows the solar system of your guys' world
It was
in
on
this
the
room.
Biger door or something.
It was on a door in the room where you
Yeah.
fought the mannequin.
I
I
think
don't
it
remember
was-
who investigated it.
I think it was Hogger or Andry.
Yeah, it may have been.
I don't think it was me.
But you guys touch the stone, and you end up getting teleported to a whole new planet. And this planet resembles Mars a lot. And
Didn't Panther Party happen
oh,
before
yeah.
that? When was Panther
Panther Party happened actually during the
During the
Bugbear
Driders
Drider
fight?
fight. Yes,
Oh,
which is a
okay.
good point to bring up.
Panther Party.
That was one of Lilia's best moments. Is during this fight, you just summoned 8 panthers, and they really did a lot of work.
8
Things would have
panthers.
probably turned out
Could
a
have
lot
used them on
differently.
this new planet we got to.
I think it wasn't. I remember being mad. I was going to pick up the panties.
Oh,
But then we
yeah.
got ported away before I could.
The panties.
That were Hogger's tourniquet.
Yeah. They had,
How did they fall off?
I think Hogger ripped
Yeah,
them
I
off.
think he just took them off.
Like later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted them.
I'm always like thinking of like, oh, I gotta pick that thing up, and then sometimes you don't get it.
Right.
Oh, we forgot a huge story thing.
Yep,
What?
that's gonna happen.
Back early on, I think in that town, Pervance gave Andrea and I 25 gold, which at the time was all of his money, and told him to get him something
At the armory.
good at the armory.
Yeah.
And we bought him what basically amounted to a pornography magazine.
Which Pervance doesn't really view as pornography. Like you
Well, they were all very
It
ugly.
was tasteful, artistic.
However, I think he was genuinely disappointed, which I was shocked by. I thought he would say like thank you, no matter what.
Right.
You give Pervance a gift. I thought he'd be very thankful. In this one instance, he was actually disappointed in us.
I think his right now, like Pervance really wants to prove himself as a hero. Those are
Yeah.
just more things that are unattainable for him.
Oh, okay.
Women he can never have.
Sure. He still has it.
I think
Oh,
he
right?
might have been lost.
Oh
In the
yeah.
red
yeah,
planet?
you guys lost some equipment.
Oh,
Yeah, because when we got to this planet,
Yeah.
everything
Well,
fell
there
apart.
he told us there was a town, but there were also giant space birds that were like
Right.
50 feet tall.
So the when you guys get to this planet, what you spend an entire episode doing is just to kind of give the planet its own feel. I put some unique creatures on there, and one of the creatures was a giant worm that would like kind of burrow into the rock and shoot out, and another one were these giant ostrich-like birds, like huge, like several stories tall birds. And Hogger said, "I want to ride one
to
of
mount
those.
those.
Yeah, I want to mount
Hogger had
them.
to
That's
ride a
even
bird.
more accurate way to say it. And so you ended up chasing this bird around for an entire episode. People fall down pits, and these like almost tapeworm-like worms kind of get on you and kind of burrow into your skin. And things like people take a lot of damage just in the effort of trying to mount this bird.
It was a waste of time.
It was a
Yeah.
tremendous waste of time, but it was fun. And you
believe-
guys were eventually successful. Hogger and Pervins mount one of the birds.
After killing members of its family. Its bird family.
Yep.
Yes.
And don't you, Lilia, talk to the bird?
I talked to them, yes, because I can do that.
Yeah.
And they were angry. It was angry and annoyed. And I basically just said, oh, well.
Do you remember the bird's name?
Ben.
It was Ben.
It was one of them Ben.
But we were also on the planet Ben.
Ben.
Turned out we were on planet
There were a
Ben.
lot of Ben things, but
Oh, and I tried to shapeshift into one of the birds to get
Right.
Hogger to shut up.
But you
Right.
turned into this like
And it
disgusting.
failed, so I turned into like a Cronenberg-esque, like, fly, failed teleportation blob. Like,
You had like a tooth and then
yeah,
like hair
like all
growing out of
kinds
the tooth.
stuff
and
Yep.
it was-
growing out of it. It was
But could still
nasty.
walk with us.
I could
was
walk
Yeah,
around, but it was
disgusting.
painful.
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
So
cool.
I turned back. I couldn't turn back for an hour.
that
Yeah.
was a really good moment.
Yeah.
But once you guys get the bird, things start progressing a little bit, and you guys end up finding this sort of village of lizard men that are torturing these people that look like Jawas, but we called them Awajas.
Yeah.
They were torturing these Awajas, and the lizard people were working. They were servants of Sylvia, and so you guys didn't like them. So Hogger, despite there being hundreds of these red lizard men, Hogger attacks.
Because he does
Using
have
the
a bird.
He has a
giant
bird,
Yeah.
and that bird does some work. The bird actually ends up taking out quite a few of them by stomping on them
Yeah.
Before dying itself.
Yeah.
before dying.
And we learn that, like, Hogger has no animal taming abilities, so of course he gets flopped off.
Right, he gets thrown off the bird as
Yeah.
it's stomping around. Yep.
Captured.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets captured, and in kind of one of Hogger's more shameful moments, I would say, one of the best lizardman warriors named Neb ends up taking Hogger's great axe from him, and that's his prized possession.
Great axe.
Hogger was not happy about.
None too pleased.
No, and he ends up just like constantly licking the axe right in front of
Neb
Hogger.
does, yeah.
And Hogger vows vengeance.
And Pervins is also captured
Purvis is also
Yes.
captured.
and thrown in a thing.
Both of you and Hogger, are thrown into a pen of pigs, basically these sort of space hogs, and you're stripped.
Stripped
Completely.
and given tattered burlap rags to wear.
Yep.
Hogger was not.
No, he was not.
And then Pervins uses a piece of his burlap rag to wash the hogs.
Pervins, a consummate performer, thought
Water.
he thought I better take advantage of the situation, play the game, act, just play into their act
Service.
here.
Sure,
So
okay.
he says, "Okay, I'm gonna
Tidy
be
these
cooperative here." He
hogs.
starts cleaning up the hogs, but he gets a little attached to the hogs.
And then when Hogger destroys one of the hogs and pulls out a rib bone
to use as a
to
weapon.
use as a weapon.
And then accidentally stabs Pervins in the back with
Actually,
it.
and
That's right.
I think that one incident, longest running wound in the show, like you had that rib bone
rib bone
jammed
jammed in
into
your
your back
for a while.
for a long time.
Meanwhile, Andri is hiding out doing nothing, and I was hiding out, and I tried to get closer, and the lizard man spotted me, so I turned into a lizard.
You were trying to get closer to Andrew,
Yeah,
right? Like, you were
yeah.
trying
We
to
were
check
trying
out
to
the
sneak
scene.
around.
Yeah.
I got spotted because I'm not very stealthy, and I had to turn into a lizard and hide.
A chameleon, I think.
Yeah, and hide in a small crack in the rocks.
But they got us all eventually.
They got us all eventually.
Yeah, I think I like walked up and threw my weapon on the floor or
Yeah,
something. and
you
just said
snuck
that-
in and said you wanted
Yeah.
to join the spider army or some shit. Oh, we totally breezed over the time that they turned into zombies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We
whatever.
did breeze into the time they turned into zombies. You guys,
Back on
how did you
regular
guys get
planet,
infected? That's the one part I don't
It was we
remember.
were fighting that warlock, and he
Yeah.
said, "Join me or die."
Oh, I forgot. He
Oh,
was like
I
a
forgot about
ghost.
the warlock.
Yeah.
He was
Oh
like a
man.
gypsy ghost.
They
Yeah.
joined.
Yeah,
They,
broad strokes.
They drank
Yeah.
the like demon blood,
Yeah.
and I turned into a mouse and went into the next room and found a stick that
this
killed
was
the guy.
after the Biger.
after
in
the
that
Biger,
dungeon.
Yeah.
after Taylor de Swift was killed by Deus
It made
Ex
us.
Machina.
It not only made us feel cold and empty, but also gave us a certain affinity for spiders.
Yeah, for spiders. It makes
Yeah.
you feel really evil.
We
Yeah.
forgot Sparvins.
Spurvins! Oh my god.
Wait, was
Oh
Spurvins
my god.
back then or before? Spurvins was before the Red Planet.
At one
Yeah,
point,
oh yeah.
Pervins was attacked by a dryer. I forget with what, but it made him birth a creature
It was
that
some
was
goo. It was like if you got hit
Oh,
by the
yeah.
goo.
He got hit by
Yeah.
the spider goo.
it made him birth a
You were
creature
pregnant.
that was essentially a tiny baby drider, but the top human part resembled Pervins.
So it was Spurvins.
And he said, "Hey everybody, it's me, Spurvins." And he popped out and he was like this like sassy, like little baby drider that looked like Pervins but loved like 90s references.
And he was evil. We thought he was evil, and we tried to kill it, but then it turned out he wanted to join us.
Yeah. But
he
then
didn't want to die, basically, so he thought, I'll
Yeah.
join your guys' side.
And he loves Pervins. He
Oh,
actually has a
yeah.
ton of respect for Pervins.
Because it's his
Dad.
dad.
Yeah.
But then Spurvins
Dad, brother.
Yes, father, brother. Spurvins went off on his own adventures, though. Maybe
Because we
we'll
left
see
him behind.
again
We
someday.
poured it
Yeah,
away
we
and
actually
left him
had a
behind.
side stories episode where
Yeah.
we continued what happened with Spurvins. He ran into some other characters. I can't believe, oh man, I'm
So
so
much
bummed that I
happened.
missed Spurvins. So much has happened. We are going to, even as we remember things, there will be even more things we forget. But I just want to
Spurvins is
say,
still out
the Spurvins is still out there. Spurvins could come into the story again at some point. But you guys, when you were infected, were kind of emo versions of yourself.
Yeah, we felt less.
Pervins smoked.
Yeah, a lot.
He smoked a lot, and
Said
then
whatever a
eyes that
lot.
and they, their
Yeah.
eyes would flash, and they would like, they would kind of like plan secretly.
Oh,
with
yeah.
each
A lot of
other.
awkward moments where, because since I'm a wood elf, I don't need to sleep, and I get a full rest after 4 hours. So there are a lot of weird moments where I would be done meditating, and they would still be up.
Talking secretly
Talking
about how we
secretly
love
and having their
spiders. We
eyes
have
go,
to get to the spiders.
So I would just like sit there, and I thought they were gonna kill us.
We were eventually cured, though.
Because halflings have a halfling communication.
Yeah.
Yep.
It sounds like that to everyone else, but
Halfling,
they, yeah.
You guys were actually cured of the infection when you killed the warlock, or
Yeah.
not when you killed the warlock. When you kind of
We killed the
What-
warlock right
It was
then.
when we woke
no,
up
I,
on.
I actually don't think you killed the warlock. I think the warlock still lived.
No,
Yeah,
he died. We broke the stick in half, and then he.
No, that was the warlock. Yes, I'm talking about the mannequin.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was just when we woke up
mannequin
on the
lived.
red planet.
You didn't have
it. Was just
anymore.
gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Whatever transported you to the red planet cured you of that infection. But the mannequin, the wizard, with the staff and the red eye, you guys actually didn't kill. He got away.
Okay.
so
Yeah, he was
you-
like a ghost.
Yeah.
He sucked.
You could see him again.
All right.
You're saying he sucked, like you just didn't like him as a thing you fought,
He was
or
a bad guy.
He was a bad guy.
okay,
He's a
yes.
bad man.
Good
He's a
character.
Bad guy. Yes. I mean, he's really just a puppet. But once you kind of all get, Lila, did you end up, because Andrew, you on the red planet do submit yourself. Did you, Lila, submit yourself as well, or
I
did you
believe
get found
a gold
out?
snake thing came through the ground and caught me and brought me there.
and then we all got captured by these
We
lizard
were all captured.
men,
You were all-
correct?
right, and so they take you to where Sylvia is, and that kind of puts us kind of on the arc that we're on now.
We went to a castle and were given
Yes.
dubious gifts.
Yes.
She wants us to take over planets for her and bring her armies. Hogger had several episodes worth of one-on-one battles with Neb and then Neb 2.
Right, so I think we kind of got to set that up a little bit. So Sylvia's been watching you guys the entire time. And
We went through a huge test, an ordeal.
Yes,
Yeah.
you went through a huge test. So once you get there, she says, I want you to be my champions. I want you to sort of lead this cosmic conquest. And but she says, even though everything you've done, you got to do another test. And so you did a test where you were in this hallway. And in this hallway, like each, the floor, the ceiling, the walls all had these steel plates on them, and there was the red spider symbol. And it seemed like the hallway went on forever. One of the panels on the floor was trapped. Ended up being a bunch of spikes. Hogger was actually not able to make the 5-foot jump over the spikes, and got hurt. But what the trick was is it was actually an endlessly repeating hallway, and kind of what was causing the effect was this gold dust.
Trust the dust.
And
Trust
if you
the
didn't
dust.
trust in the dust, you got out fine.
So the dust was actually really hard to see, but as adventurers, you guys were pretty perceptive. You were able to see the dust. The trick was is you kept walking through the dust. The hallway would keep repeating, but Lilia, you actually used a spell to kind of puff the dust up,
Druidcraft, I
and
think,
you
again.
you you
Puff
snuck
of
up.
air.
Yep.
And they snuck under, and then I turned into a mouse and just
Well,
went.
except Purvance,
Except for
who
Purvance.
trusted in the dust.
Trusted in the dust.
He went through, and then to his eyes' relief, he saw his 3 best friends waiting for him on the other side.
And you guys were
Thumbs up.
actually in. You,
were in a
Alelia,
different
Andrea,
room.
and Hager were in another room. They were teleporting.
You guys were like, "Where's
We were
Purvance?"
gone.
Yeah.
But Purvance, wherever he ended up, he thought that he was with you guys,
Right.
and you guys were treating him so well, and he was so happy.
I realized Andrea didn't surrender herself. She lost a hand. She used one mechanic that I got was a free slap on a face. And so she
Free
used,
bitch slap.
Yeah, she used it on I think a leader, or like a woman, I forget who.
Yeah.
Yeah, she used
The
that
lizard
slap
man.
and then really paid the price for it.
The lizard men
Yeah.
cut off your hand.
Oh, yeah,
Right-
that was a good move though. You
right
like
hand.
backflipped and made her drop her cane or
Oh,
staff,
yeah.
and then we
Right.
got the staff, but then she just got the staff back.
Oh yeah, just
chopped
poured
her
it back
hand
in.
off,
Yeah, cut off the primary hand.
And then you and Hager were like hand for hand.
Hand for hands. Hand for hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hand.
Andrea wasn't super fond of being in Hager's position though, without a hand, because I mean you couldn't. You also Hager broke your bow, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, a
He
long
snapped
time,
it.
back by
Right.
the biker door.
So
Back
now
by
it's
the biker
just
door.
like a left hand, and I try to think of a lot of times when I'm like about to do something, like
Mm-hmm.
if I feel confident enough with my left hand in real life.
Right.
Like, so talking back about game mechanics, if
Mm-hmm.
you think of like the damage you would do with your right hand, it's not equal to the damage you would do with your
Yeah.
left hand.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Left
Well,
hand's
there
Yeah.
are some rogues that are completely ambidextrous and are as skilled with one hand as the other, but that
not
was
Andrew.
not Andrew, unfortunately. So, Purvance, you're in the situation where you're with people that look exactly like your friends. They're treating you all with love. You're actually still in the hallway that
Yeah.
keeps repeating.
Until they tried to kill me.
They did. Well, let's kind of run through that. So you were happy as a clam. They were kind of going on forever. Like you just
Never
kept
talking,
going through this
always
hallway.
just
Oh, yeah.
Always just like very Twilight Zone, just kind of motioning to you, thumbs up.
Hager, my best friend, put me on his shoulders.
Yep.
This whole time, I
I
think
was-
you made Purvance roll for perception, and it was just like not happening.
Just kept failing. Yeah.
Then I tried to get down from Hager's shoulders, and he wouldn't let me.
No,
Yeah.
so you tried to see what was up. You tried to get off of Hager's shoulders, and he gripped onto your legs, and he wouldn't let you go. And that's when you knew things were bad. So what was kind of that thought process like for you?
These are my best friends, people I love and trust most in the world. What are they doing? I'm terrified, but I still love them. But I need to get away from them. But all I want to do is be with them. But yeah, eventually he got out of it. He got
did.
out of it, and he reclaimed his place with his rightful party, his true friends.
Yeah, so you were actually running away from these mirror images, and the Lilia clone fell into the spikes. And it turned out the trick was, whenever the mirror images got damaged, you guys got damaged in real life. So you felt the pain of being impaled on spikes.
Wow. On our side, meanwhile,
You were in combat.
we were dealing with this crazy room with shifting floor and spikes everywhere that
Right.
Hager had run out onto, and there were driders on it. And so we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think I was like holding it up with vines because Hager was being crushed.
Then you cast the bears.
And then I cast bears, 4 bears of equidistant.
Right. So this was
keep it
the
balanced.
second trap. It was this enormous platform that was on this fulcrum, but it just looked like a normal floor. However, when you stepped onto it, if you weren't in the center, the floor would tilt and you would fall into a pit of spikes.
And the ceiling had spikes too.
Yes,
It
and the
was coming down.
ceiling had spikes too. Well, the spikes on the ceiling only came down when somebody fell or when the platform tilted. And somebody fell underneath the platform. But to make things more complicated, as you're trying to get across this huge platform, Driders came and attacked, as you said. But you actually got pretty creative in figuring out a solution to this trap.
Summoned 4 bears and balanced it out with the 4 bears so that we could go, and they would move to counterbalance everything that was happening.
Right, any weight that was being shifted, the bears tried to accommodate that as much as possible.
Pretty good bears.
Purvance, you actually did eventually go underneath the dust. You were reunited with the group. What the scene that you saw was pretty traumatic
Hager in
because
danger.
right, the spikes came down enough that Hager was in an unfortunate position. He was getting crushed by spikes.
And I was holding it up with vines with all my might.
Yep, you used entangle, right?
Yeah, I think
Yep.
so.
Purvance needed to get to Hager at all costs.
which is very
Save him.
much what Pervins would have done. Yeah.
And you did. You went after him and you kind of drug him out of the spikes.
Didn't he
good.
fall again or something?
You guys actually, at first we were scared, and I was like, Pervins, stop! And you stopped at the same distance where Hogger was on our side, though. And so then we made it work out so that things moved around and we got him out of there.
It basically got so jammed
Yeah.
that the ceiling fell so much that it actually couldn't even.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you guys
that much.
crossed over, right?
We climbed over,
up
yeah.
top.
You guys
Over the
crossed
roof.
over, and then we made it to the other side and beat that challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you were successful, and because you were successful, Sylvia rewarded you because you were her new champions, and she put you up in this very fancy mansion. And it was glorious. There was a ton of food that you guys didn't really trust at first,
Pervins ate it. He was so
Pervin-
hungry.
I refused
Turns
to eat
went
it.
Yeah.
Pervins likes the finer things in life.
And each of you had a room with your name engraved on a gold plate.
Even Taylor to Swift.
Even Taylor to Swift. But you guys couldn't get into it.
Yeah.
Yep, you guys couldn't get into that room. And none of you could go inside the other person's room. You could look in and see what was there.
Yeah.
But you couldn't go inside.
Pervins' room.
Pervins's room was the most eventful, I would say. In Pervins's room,
This is my favorite part.
inside there was a naked Drider woman.
Because
Voluptuous.
Pervins had decided that he was in love with the spider goddess.
Very voluptuous women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With spider bodies.
And you kind of freaked out, Pervins.
Pervins didn't know what to do. He's never been in a position like that before. A woman just waiting for him.
Ready to go.
So he ran out. He needed to get some. I think he ran to Hogger.
Yeah, ran out of the hallway to discuss.
Goes back inside. The Drider woman is not there.
God.
Turns out if you don't act, the opportunities disappear. But there was another
Sorry.
thing in
Much like
Pervins's
high
room.
school.
Yeah. There was another thing in Pervins's room. A very extravagant looking clothes. Very frilly.
Very
Lots of
ornate.
embroidery, very ornate clothes. And they just looked absolutely stunning on Pervins.
And after he took a warm, luxurious bath, he
Yeah.
tried on those clothes, and they fit like a glove.
Gave you a +5 to charisma.
Yeah.
And
Like he needed
everybody
it.
thought you looked good. Even
Yeah.
the most
You look
hardened warriors thought you looked very, very nice.
Not everyone is trusting, though, with their gifts.
I didn't. Yeah, I tried mine on and it fit like a glove and gave me, what was it?
Yeah, so it gave you increased dexterity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't trust it,
Did
so
you
I put
take
it in
your?
my
Oh,
pack.
you.
It was like clothes that are only fit for the highest of the rogues.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
So you
that
didn't
was
feel worthy to wear
Andrew's
them.
rogues.
Yeah.
Reward is there were these basically master assassin
Yeah.
robes that Andrew decided he wasn't worthy of and did not. She did not pick them up. I do that a lot in the show as well. Hogger
Had a sweet axe in there.
he no
He had the hand.
he had the basically what was in Hogger's room. Finally, we'd been waiting for episodes and episodes for Hogger's hand to kind of be replaced by something, and inside there was something that he could have attached to his stump that would have been a blade.
Yeah.
That would have been really awesome for Hogger, but this whole thing seemed a little messed up to him. He didn't like magic, he didn't like free
trust it.
gifts, but he demanded that before he did anything else for Sylvia, he wanted to fight Neb to get his axe back.
Yeah. He didn't like free gifts until the next day when he picked up a bunch of axes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took 9
Right, yeah. So the next day, you guys wake up, you go into this armory, and there's tons and tons of weapons in there. Yeah.
And there was a beautiful elven woman, which Lilia was interested in,
Oh, yeah.
who appraised our magical weapons, that Hogger also pushed down.
Right,
Yeah.
and as soon as that happened, she didn't want to appraise
Yeah.
anything else. You still have something that is unappraised, I believe, correct? Because of that?
Pervins didn't get his
The boot
dagger.
dagger.
Pervins'
that's what it is.
dagger,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, because you
My
picked out a dagger
falchion
from the
was.
armory that you
Yeah.
wanted to praise.
I had a falchion from before that I had appraised.
Pervins had a sword that I believe he got appraised, and then he also had the dagger, but Hogger offended her before the dagger could get appraised.
Right.
Though Pervins did give Hogger that dagger to carry in his boot, just in case he needed it. But Hogger was armed with all those axes all over his body.
Right. And so we finally get to the point where Hogger and Neb face off in this ring of fire.
But before that, we
some
were walking
spitting.
through all the Driders, and these guys all kept trying to spit on them.
Yeah, you guys didn't
And-
like the Driders.
And so the Driders would real quick cut them, and so Hogger made another enemy in Neb 2, a Drider who wore assless chaps.
Yes. Yes, assless leather chaps that covered everything except his
bulb.
stump.
His bulb.
His spider bulb.
Assless spider
Even the
chaps.
legs. And Neb 2 ended up pinning Hogger down and basically said no more spitting.
Yeah.
And so he made another enemy, and Hogger challenged him to a duel as well. And so after Neb, this character that was unceremoniously named Neb 2 would sort of be his next opponent. But he gets in the ring, and he fights him. And it's a tough fight. When he went into the armory, Hogger picked up 7 other axes, and he attached them all to his person. But he didn't realize that these axes were all magical. They had different magical properties. So every time he used an axe, it had a different effect. Every time this happened, Hogger was disgusted, so he would drop the axe and not use it, regardless of whether or not the effect was really, really cool.
Stream starts in 15 minutes.
Okay. We gotta hurry. We got a schedule to keep. But anyway, what ends up happening is Hogger not only defeats Neb, he ends up completely humiliating him, ripping out the lizard's tongue from his mouth, completely shames him. Unfortunately, his fight with Neb 2 ends a little poorly. I want to talk about the charming of Neb 2, but we'll skip over that.
Well, Pervins casts the spell to charm Neb 2, so as the fight with Neb is going on, Pervins is developing these feelings for Neb 2 of like, oh, he's such a hero, I want him to be my best friend.
Despite the fact that all of his affections were because of the spell.
Yeah. But then Neb 2 steps into the ring with Hogger, and Pervins doesn't know who his allegiance lies with.
Right. Classic Pervins. The fight with Neb 2 ends poorly because the shadows that only you guys can see, the shadows that look exactly like you, except they have an eye kind of etched into their foreheads, come and they all slam their blades into Neb 2, killing him.
And Hogger was losing that fight.
And Sylvia couldn't
totally.
see them. So Sylvia was pissed and thought Hogger or someone had used cheating.
Right. Somebody, the fight was won through illegitimate means.
Hogger needed the help, but then he was so furious that someone else took his kill that he vowed to avenge Neb 2, his former opponent.
Right. And so Hogger, upset, charges after Sylvia, the goddess, wanting to kill her. And Sylvia could very easily and very instantly kill Hogger. And so kind of as a courageous effort, you take off your clothes and you're butt naked in front of all these soldiers, in front of your friends. You say, here, I take these clothes. Please don't kill my friend. It was an apologetic gesture.
Well, Pervins just watched his one best friend, Neb 2, die. He couldn't watch the same happen to his other best friend, Hogger.
Right.
So even though he loved those clothes, he offered them up as a way to spare Hogger's life.
And slightly quelled now, thanks to Pervins' wonderful gesture, Sylvia sends you on your task. And basically there are these 3 planets that she wants you guys to go to and enslave whatever creatures are there. So you can make them part of the army. And initially you guys were going to have a choice in which planet you went to. Because of Hogger's action, she was a little upset, and she sent you to this frozen planet.
Some of us are naked.
You're naked, specifically. And these temperatures, these are like sub-zero temperatures. And sort of the challenge right now that you guys have is how you're going to traverse this treacherous land without freezing to death.
There are mechanical monsters on this planet, we know that much.
Yep, mechanical monsters.
Mechanoids.
That can somehow survive the cold, so maybe there's a clue there.
Cool.
But that's it. I'm sure we forgot a ton of stuff, and I deeply apologize for that. But it was fun sitting down with you guys and kind of reminiscing a little bit.
Yeah, there's a few things that I forgot about.
Yeah, so much has happened on the show. Hopefully more will continue to happen. There's kind of a new adventure that I'm excited about once we end this storyline, so we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully this got you interested in Tabletop Adventures. Hopefully it was somewhat easy to follow. I know this story is off the rails a little bit, but thank you guys so much for watching, and we will be back next week for sure with the next episode of Tabletop Adventures on the frozen planet of Azul. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Bye.